Boker Tov, good morning and welcome back. It is now after the high holidays. We're starting a new year. Amazing. It's a new year, a new beginning, a new start, a new depth in Torah, like never before. And we are learning at the modern day mitzvahs. We're actually almost done the modern day mitzvahs. We're learning 77 of the positive mitzvahs. We're up to mitzvah number 73 today. Wow. Mitzvah number 73 out of 77 positive mitzvahs that you can fulfill today in exile. It's not being so hard, so difficult. Good morning, Fran and Kate and Keith. The mitzvah number 73 is as follows. We're learning about the mitzvahs that can be fulfilled when we don't have a temple in Jerusalem, when we don't have the Mashiach. What are the mitzvahs that we actually can fulfill today? And afterwards, we're going to do the passive commandments, all the things you're not supposed to do, which are obviously a lot easier. We'll see. We'll find out. Time will tell. Maybe. It is a positive commandment to render judgment about heritages, inheritances of landed property. I guess they call this in law bequests. And this is this kind of law. It's called trusts, wills and trusts, I think it's called, right? Where it's inheritances. You've got to be able to, good morning, Corey and Terry. You've got to be able to render judgments about inheritances. Scripture states, if a man dies and has no son, then you shall transfer his inheritance to his daughter. I think we did this one. Didn't we do this one? We learned this one. Next mitzvah. Okay. Within the next mitzvah, the mitzvah of sending away from the nest, mitzvah number 74. The mitzvah of sending away the mother bird from the nest. Now, this mitzvah, friends, is an enigma. Good morning, Keith, Elaine as well. This mitzvah is an enigma. Do you know the mitzvah of sending away the mother bird from its nest? It's supposed to be because of compassion, right? We're compassionate, so therefore, if you want the eggs, you got to send away the mother bird. Now, it's a little weird because some people will look for a nest in order to send away the mother bird, in order to get the eggs, in order to fulfill the mitzvah, not because they need the eggs. Now is that cruel? Is that compassion? A little weird, right? Let's take a look.
But is this just an analogy as opposed to...
Well, it's a mitzvah. The mitzvah being said it is practically applicable. That's what it means. What does it mean at a deeper level? We're going to talk about that. Let's take a look. The positive commandment of sending away the mother bird from the nest. Let's take a look at the mitzvah in the original. It's in Parshas Kiseitse. I'm going to pull up the original verse here. Okay. It comes right after the prohibition of cross-dressing. Mitzvah number 20, number 74. It is in Deuteronomy chapter 22, verse number 6. If you happen upon a bird's nest on the road, on any tree, or on the ground, and inside it are chicks or eggs that you would like to take for yourself, and the mother is brooding upon the chicks or upon the eggs, you must not take the mother together with her young while she is sitting upon her young. This is the original Torah verse. Rather, you must first send away the mother once, and then you may take the young for yourself, and you may take the mother too if she returns, in order that it go well for you and that you live long.
Wait, you take the mother when she returns to the nest and all the eggs are gone?
You just can't take away the babies in front of the mother. But if you chased away the mother and you took the babies, and the mother comes back, take the mother one out. Yep. But isn't it interesting that this mitzvah is one which promises us long life? Where else does the Torah promise us longevity? It's very unusual. Only when it comes to the mitzvah of honoring your parents. Honoring your parents and chasing away the mother bird, these two mitzvahs bear the promise of longevity. Interesting. Like, why? Why would you get long life from chasing away a mother bird? I can understand long life from honoring your parents. Because honoring your parents is probably the most difficult mitzvah of all mitzvahs, I think. Except, look, it's easy to love parents that are awesome. But some parents are just not awesome. They're flawed. They're deeply flawed human beings sometimes. And that could be very difficult to honor those kind of people. Most of us want to just cut ties with such people. But when it comes to parents, you have to honor them no matter what. So I can see why that might bring you the greatest blessing of longevity. But what's the mitzvah of chasing away the mother bird? What's it all about? Says the Chafetz Chaim, the positive commandment of sending away from the nest, which means that if someone finds a bird's nest on the way, with the mother bird sitting on the fledglings or on the eggs, and he wishes to take them, he has to send away the mother bird first and take them afterwards, for Scripture states, and you shall surely send the dam away. The dam? What's a dam? Dam might be an old fancy word for a mother. I'm going to ask Elaine to fact check that. What? Dam is a mother? Oh, in Afrikaans, a dame. Dames and hira. I think dames means woman. The woman's bathroom is called dames. So maybe it's like a Latin form of woman or mother. Mother. Dame, says Corey. Dame is a woman. It's a very old-fashioned word for woman. A great dame, as opposed to Great Dane. Good. Okay, so you should surely send the dam. But here's this dam with D-A-M. It doesn't look right. D-A-M-E maybe. Okay. Yeah, a water blocker. And afterwards, and the young you may take for yourself. The way to send it off is by taking hold of its wings and making it fly. If one sent it away and returned even many times, he is yet obligated to send it off. If it was flying about, if its wings touched the nest, he would have the duty to send it away. And if not, he would be free of any obligation to send it off. Now, you mentioned an eagle. An eagle is not a kosher bird. Does this apply only to kosher birds or even to non-kosher birds? By the way, this week's Torah portion, Parsha of Noach, of the Great Flood, talks about a bird. Because when the flood ended, Noach wanted to make sure that it was safe to get out of the ark. So he sent away the raven. And the raven actually went out and came right back. Because it didn't trust Noach with his wife. Whatever that means. Then eventually sent out. He said, yeah. Then he sent out the dove, and the dove was the olive branch, a symbol of peace, right? Went out, came back, because then it went to settle. Eventually, it went and it settled. It was a sign that it was safe to emerge. So we have this theme of the bird in this week's Torah portion. The requirement of sending away from the nest applies only with a pure kosher fowl. So if you want an eagle's nest, you have to send away the mother bird, which is interesting because if it's about compassion, who cares about the kosher status? By the way, I was thinking about it this morning when it comes to the animals that went into the ark. How many animals went into Noah's ark in this Torah portion? 2 of each, male and female. Except the kosher ones. 7 pairs of each. So if you were a kosher animal, you were clearly outnumbering your treifa brethren in the ark. But what's amazing is that after they came out of the ark, Noah offered sacrifices before God. Didn't live long. Stabilized the population. Okay, so if it's got to do with compassion, can you imagine offering before God? Like, a wine libation. Can you imagine buying a $900 bottle of wine and offering it before God upon the altar? Like, you take the bottle, you pour it down, not down the drain, but down the altar. Can you imagine? It's quite an amazing experience when you think about. Imagine buying a new Mercedes-Benz and driving it to Jerusalem up the altar ramp. Putting it on the altar. I mean, that's what they were doing with an ox. Take an ox, burn it upon the altar. Oxes don't come cheap, Yes. It's quite an amazing experience to think that I'm doing this for my God. It's like buying jewelry for your wife. Well, another amazing experience. Yeah. Okay. So the requirement of sending away from the nest applies only with a pure kosher fowl, and which is not prepared, which means not in his possession, And it also means that a person found it on the way in some tree or on the ground. So it was not prepared. And specifically with fledglings which do not fly as yet. So it's either chicks or eggs, but not babies that can fly. Oh, we have a guest from Columbus, Ohio. Madison Weiss, Boker Tov, to you too. David Weinberg, Shalom. Elaine says dame is referred to female parent of an animal. Oh, particularly that's a dam, a dam. See, Elaine, I know I can count on you. A dam is the female parent of an animal, particularly a horse. So this publication knows it's English. A mare is a female horse. It's the mother of the female horse. It's a mare bas a dam. Okay, and specifically with fledglings which do not fly as yet, and they need their mother bird, or with eggs that are not infertile and rotting. If a person transgresses and takes the mother bird with the young, he is to fulfill the positive commandment and to send the dam off. Wow, so if you already took the chicks without sending away the mother bird, then still come back and send away the mother bird. That's interesting. Again, if it's got to do with compassion, then what's the point of that? You already took the chicks. You come back just to scare off the mother bird. What are you doing? The Torah is not a Torah of ethics. That's what I'm trying to bring out to you right now. The Torah is not a book of good behavior, of human morality and rational ethics. If it was, none of this would make sense. Why only kosher fowl, not non-kosher fowl? Why only if it's chanced upon, but not if it's already in your possession? Right? It doesn't make sense. Because this mitzvah is a chok, which means an irrational decree, not a logical observance. Now, that's why I brought you the example of offering your Mercedes-Benz or pouring an expensive bottle of wine upon the altar, because people might say, oh, that's such a waste. It's a shame. And that's what Cain did in the parsha this past Shabbos, Cain and Abel. Abel offered the finest of his flock before God, and Cain said, do I need to burn the best for God? Give him third-rate quality, you know? The idea here is that a relationship with God wants a relationship with you in a real, tangible sense. And just like you don't understand when it comes to your wife, you don't understand everything she wants from you. But trust me, do it anyways. So too with God. You don't understand everything, but do it anyways because it's love. It's based on love. And love is unconditional. You know, when my wife asks me to do something, I don't say, let's talk about it. I mean, I do sometimes, but you know, when I get that sense that this is important to her, I say sure. I don't start nitpicking it because it's about love. It's about commitment. It's not about rational understanding. And the same thing with Hashem. There are those Jews that want to limit or they want to cut the legs off of Yiddishkeit and turn it into some sort of a goody two-shoes kind of thing.
Be a good Jew, to be a good person.
Yeah, that to do a mitzvah is to do a good deed. And to be a good Jew is to be a kind person. But that's not what the Torah is about. Yes, there is kindness included, one of the 613 mitzvahs. Yeah. Helping old ladies cross the street is probably included in one of the commandments. I guess you could incorporate it into one of the commandments. But to say that all of Judaism is helping old ladies cross the street, it's ridiculous. You know, feeding the poor is important, but that's not all of Judaism. There are those that want to limit all of Judaism to...
Well, that's more Reform Judaism is very much focused like that.
Yeah. When you pull God out of the equation, then it becomes just about being a good person. And the question is, what is being a good person? So some people will tell you being a good person is being a Democrat.
But not all.
But then other people will tell you that being a good person is actually being a Republican and you're an idiot. Right? And then other people will tell you actually being a good person is being a far extreme right wing or far extreme left wing. Being a really good person is about marching with the Palestinians. And because once you get into human rational understanding, there's no limit to what you can justify. But when you surrender your mind and you say, God, I'm devoted to you, like you do to your wife or your husband. When you do it out of love, you say, God, I didn't understand, but I'm doing what you want, not what I want. That is the essence of the Torah. It's devotion, it's submission, it is commitment, it's marriage. Sorry, Harvey, what were you saying? Not all the commandments are hooks.
And so many of them, as we discussed, have a very rational basis for it.
So let's talk about this a minute. So Harvey, you're saying that there's three kinds of mitzvahs in the Torah. There is edus, which is testimonials. Testimonials like why we eat matzah, to remember the exodus from Egypt. Why we lay tefillin, to remember, it reminds us of God's protection. The mezuzah reminds us that God's protecting us. The sukkah reminds us of the exodus from Egypt, right? Those are testimonial, historical, sentimental kind of things. Then there is rational commandments like honoring your parents or not to murder or being kind to other people. Those are rational commandments, mishpatim. And then there are the third and final category, which is a chok, C-H-O-K, chok, which means a decree, which is completely irrational. Like, I mean, Tzitzis reminds you of the 613 commandments, but why do you have to wear a beard? Why a beard? Why does it say you're not supposed to destroy your beard? There's discussion about how you destroy your beard, the razor or not a razor, whatever. Just keep it general over here. Why do you have to have a beard? What?
Even kosher food.
Yeah, why kosher food? So people love to rationalize kosher food. The reason for kosher food is because it's a healthier diet. If that was the case, then all Jews, all rabbis would look like Arnold Schwarzenegger. Clearly, they're wrong. The definition of insanity, right? Right. Yeah, I go to a kosher deli in Williamsburg. You know, the Satzmer, they know how to eat. Heart attack. You look through the menu here. Everyone is God forbid, you know. So where am I going with this? Is that you're correct, Harvey, in saying that not all the mitzvahs are choks. However, when it comes to the law of the red heifer, the red cow, which is a very irrational mitzvah. It says that you have to offer a red cow in the temple, and its ashes are sprayed upon a person who came in contact with a dead person. And at that moment, when the ashes are sprayed upon him, he becomes pure, and the one that sprayed him becomes impure. I mean, none of this makes sense, right? That's called a chok. That's the quintessential chok. So the Torah says, Zos chukas haTorah. This is the chok, the decree of the whole Torah, which means the whole Torah is essentially a chok. Even the parts of the Torah that we do understand, whether because of testimonial or whether because of rational understanding, even then, the rock solid, rock bottom foundation of every single command in the Torah is actually an irrational decree. Where does this make a difference? When your logic opposes the understanding. For example, imagine we all understand you're supposed to honor your parents. Of course, you're supposed to honor your parents. But what happens if your father is Hitler's lieutenant? Now, what are you going to do? What happens if your father is Bernie Madoff? What happens if your father is some other? Stand the rock solid foundation of every mitzvah as a chok, as a decree, as an irrational decree. And therefore, even when you do understand the mitzvah, you're only understanding part of the mitzvah. God has granted you access to understand part of the mitzvah, just to make it more meaningful to you. But that doesn't mean that where your understanding ends, the mitzvah concludes. So a more practical example, tragically, is Alzheimer's. What happens if a parent has Alzheimer's and now they're becoming belligerent and they don't know what's going on anyways? Can I just put them in a nursing home and never see them again? Answer is no. You still have to honor and respect them. Like the sage in the Talmud, whose mother was lost her mind, and she would come to meet him in the study hall, and she'd take up a shoe and whack him over the head in front of his students. And what did he do? he would sit there patiently until she finished in front of his students. And once when her shoe dropped out of her hand, he gently picked it up and put it back in her hand so she could finish beating him until she finished beating him. Right? So there's a very good example of a rational mitzvah which is no longer making irrational sense. So therefore, what I'm trying to prove over here, Harvey, to bring out, is that when it comes to the mitzvahs that actually do make sense, even the mitzvahs that you think make sense, even they are indeed founded on a basis of irrational observance. And that's why, as Jews, I believe this is the reason why Jews have survived all the ages. If Judaism was subject to rational interpretation alone, we'd be gone. And we were very close.
Because it's really easy to, if it's rational, it's easy to de-rationalize it.
Yeah, you've been argued into something, you've been persuaded in, you can be persuaded out.
Yeah, exactly.
But when it comes to faith, if your relationship with Yiddishkeit is not based on seichel, on logic, but on faith, that's why the yarmulke sits on top of the head, because the yarmulke of faith represents higher than reason, higher than understanding. Now, when somebody comes and explains to us why God does not exist, when somebody comes to us and explains why if you do this, I'm going to kill you, we say I'm going to do it anyways. I don't understand why. And they laugh at us, they mock us for doing it anyways, but we do it anyways. Why? Because we're based on a foundation of rock solid, unshakable faith, trust and faith. Yeah, trust and faith. Trust is like an outgrowth of faith. So this, I believe, is the reason why Judaism has survived. Because think about it: the Second Temple destruction, the First Temple destruction, the Crusades, the Cossacks, the Hitler, the World War I, and every inch of Europe in which you've been persecuted and pillaged and plundered and humiliated and whatever. How did Judaism survive? Because we said, look, God, we don't understand. We're going to do it anyways. There's a great film called God on Trial, which takes place inside of a barrack in Auschwitz. I think it's based on an account by Elie Wiesel, where they made a court and they called God on trial. You have a right, you have an obligation to protect your people, and you have failed. And they called in testimony, from various, there was 3 rabbis there, and they called in testimony from concentration camps inmates, and they decided that God is found guilty on all counts. God was found guilty on all counts, and then what happened? They stepped out. They finished the court case, and they said, "Oh, it's time to daven Ma'ariv. It's time to do the evening service." They started saying, "Yizgadol v'yizgada Shemei Rabbah," exalted and glorified be His holy name. Right? I don't understand. It doesn't make any sense. But a Jew is a Jew is a Jew is a Jew, no matter what. Right? Wow. News finishes up, and I know time is flying over here. Welcome to Elaine. It says there's religion, ethical culture. Okay. Winston, good morning. Gary Poland, is the Torah just for the Jews or for everyone, Rabbi? The answer is the Torah was given only to the Jews. And that's a historical fact. The Torah, as well as the 10 Commandments, by the way, were given only to the Jews. What about the Gentiles? The Gentiles were given in this week's Torah portion, after the flood of Noah, the 7 Noahide laws. You can Google them, the 7 laws of Noah, the 7 Noahide laws, Noahide. They are applicable to all mankind, but the Torah applies to all Jews, only to Jews. Who else is obligated to keep Shabbos, lay tefillin, put up mezuzahs, or wear tzitzis? Those are commandments for the Jews. Let's just finish this page over here. If a person transgresses and takes the mother bird with the young, he is to fulfill the positive commandment and send the dam off. If he ritually slew the mother bird, or it died before he sent it off, so that he can no longer fulfill the positive commandment, he has thus violated a negative commandment, which is negative commandment number 189. Remember, it's going to be the corollary of the positive commandments. So likewise, if someone came along and seized the mother bird from his hand and sent it away, or if it fled out of his hand without his knowledge, which means against his wish. In other words, he was trying to send away the mother bird, but he didn't manage. He is to receive whiplashes for violating a negative commandment, number 189, since he plainly did not observe the positive commandment. If he took the mother bird and clipped its wings so that it can no longer fly, and then he sent it off, he should be given whiplashes for disobedience. And he is to keep it with him until its wings grow back, and then he is to send it away. This mitzvah is enforced everywhere at every time for both man and woman. Lots to talk about this. We can explore it further tomorrow, God willing. But with that, I'm going to call it a day, everybody.
Wait, is Corey on there?
Corey is here.
Would you tell her Harvey Barnett said that I read The Positivity Bias, which she suggested, and it was one of the most profound books and stories that I've ever read.
Corey, should he? I don't know if you heard that.
Life-changing.
I don't know if you heard this from Harvey, but Harvey Barnett is here. He's back in town. And he just said that a message to you, Corey, is that he read the positivity bias that you recommended. He said it was the most unbelievable, awesome, life-changing book with its wisdom and stories of the Rebbe. It's the Rebbe's positivity bias, basically. The Rebbe's view on reality. Highly recommended reading to everybody. Positivity Bias by the Rebbe. A book about the Rebbe by Mendel Kalmenson from London, my colleague. All right, guys. Shkoyach. Thank you very much, everybody. Have a great day.